Frank.
Yay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kristie Powe. I'm a board member with Focus on Race Relations Frankfort, or FORR Frankfort as we call it. I want to thank you all for joining us this evening. I want to thank you for joining us yesterday. What the community does not know is all of you were gracious enough to sign up for this meeting yesterday, and I forgot to click record. So these wonderful candidates are all here for a second go round, and we are excited to have you. This is our for city commissioners, and for group, generally, we were established to have open and honest conversations about race. We encourage open dialogue. We recognize that race is probably one of the most difficult things for people to talk about, but it's also one of the most important, because the less you get it out there, the easier it is to pretend that it just doesn't exist. And we all know that that's not the case. So tonight, our questions focus on race in our community. We thank you so much for taking the time and having the courage to answer those questions. And I do want to add that we are co-sponsored by Together Frankfort. Okay, so all of our candidates, for the second time, know how we're going to do this. I give each candidate 2 minutes to introduce themselves. They will have 3 questions, and each will have 2 minutes to answer those questions, and then a minute for exit. So is everybody ready to get started? We're going to go in first question order, and Kyle, that means you're up first for an introduction.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you guys tonight. My name is Kyle Thompson, and I'm running for the position of City Commissioner this November for my hometown of Frankfort. I'm a local kid, born and raised here in Frankfort. The only time I spent away from my beloved home was during my educational years at UK, and then on to Ohio Northern University Law School. I'm a Christian, a husband, a father of 5, a small business owner, a practicing attorney for the last 20 years. And if that's not enough, I'm also a candidate for local city office. I have a strong desire to grow our city, our beautiful town, with more people, more businesses, which would create more jobs, good paying jobs. I want more beautiful amenities for our families and a thriving downtown and business districts within the city limits. Over the last 40 years, we have had a total of 1.5% growth in our town. You have a 1 in 25 chance of being a victim of crime in Frankfort, and you have a 150% higher chance of being a victim of violent crime in this city than other cities of comparable size in the Commonwealth. And of all cities in Kentucky, Frankfort has a higher crime rate than 92% of all of them. We have a growth problem, we have a serious crime problem, we have a drug addiction problem that is at a crisis point, and all of these issues are not being addressed because for the last 30 years, we have had an ego problem at our city hall. Our local government officials have not allowed our chosen style of government, the city manager form of government, to work properly, and have stalled or stopped any progress for this beautiful city at every chance in an attempt to create and improve upon their own legacies. It's time for these efforts to cease. Frankfort is at a crossroads. We can replace this mainly lame duck group of elected officials with a group of destined to change the path and eventually the history of Frankfort, Kentucky. To begin that process, I ask for your vote on or before Tuesday, November 3rd. I'm 8th on the ballot, and my name is Kyle Thompson. Thank you.
Perfect timing. All right, next up, we've got Diane.
My name is Diane Strong, and I'm also running for City Commission. Unlike the other candidates, I'm fairly new to Frankfort. I think it's actually an asset. I believe I have a fresh perspective on a lot of things. When you live in a place for a long time, it's easy to overlook things that you don't see anymore. I actually chose to come here. I could have come to anywhere that was within commuting distance to Lexington, but did a lot of investigation and discovered that Frankfort was above and beyond any other place had to offer, and I knew it had the most to offer for my family. Between the rich history and government and the museums and KSU and just the list goes on, it's not let me down one bit. The people here are amazing. They've embraced us like family, not treated us like outsiders. And I've decided that I want to give back by being a city commissioner. I think I do have a lot to offer. And I also intend to take my paychecks and put them back into the community towards anything that is going to make our community a better place. So it really is a labor of love. I really look forward to doing the best that I can do for Frankfort. I'm honest, I'm energetic, I'm very optimistic. I ask for your vote. I'm number 7 on the ballot, Diane Strong. Strong like gold.
Thank you so much. Next is Harry.
Hi, I'm Harry Carver, and I'm like the rest of the guys and gals on the screen. I'm running for City Commission. I was not born here. I wasn't raised here. I came here to take a job a number of years ago. Actually, it was a temporary job. And the longer I was here, the more I realized, hey, this is a great place to live. I think I might stay. And I think one of the things that's recognized over time is that I'm not sure we all and all people in Frankfort recognize, you know, what we have here. We have incredible assets. And one of the things is, you know, Kyle's alluded to, or not alluded to, talked about, and, you know, Diane's talking about, we just have not had the leadership that takes the assets that we have to move us forward. There's, you know, we have incredible things going on here and incredible things for people to do. And it begs the question, where could we have been if we had, or where could we be if we had leadership for the past 30 years? You know, we haven't, you know, a pretty low unemployment rate, even in the middle of the pandemic. But given that, why is it that, you know, that there are people that are, you know, are doing without? Why do we have such a high unemployment rate, or not unemployment rate, high homeless rate? I mean, there's all kinds of things that are going on that, you know, that really there's no excuse for, given the relative level of economic prosperity that we've had. So again, it boils down to leadership. And as we were organizing on the table several years ago, it was very clear in the table conversations that came out of that people recognized the assets that we had here in Frankfort, but they really questioned where or why the lack of leadership, you know, was letting us down and not letting us make the best use of what we have. So that's why I decided that it was important that you know, put your money where your mouth is, and then you can't complain about things unless you're willing to take a stand and move. So I decided to run for City Commission.
All right, thank you so much. Next up, we have Patricia.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, first and foremost, thank you, Frankfort and Together Frankfort, for hosting this important forum. I truly appreciate your leadership in this area and your sincerity for justice for all. I want to thank Frankfort for allowing me to serve you for the last 18 months, and I'm looking forward to the next 3.5. I'm a mother of 2 wonderful boys, 10 and 17, and lived here for 23 years. I participate in many organizations across the city and willing to continue to work hard for a positive, economically strong, and community-focused Frankfort. We have great potential, and it's time we work together to get Frankfort where it should be: a thriving economy, destination city, each neighbor for the better good of another, career placement, and a town-gown community that encompasses the university, and the university encompasses the community. Everything Frankfort needs to achieve cannot be done by politics, lifelong entitlements of power, or self-serving people with personal agendas. We must work together to break those crippling agendas through continued transparency, accountability of all of our officials, and allowing our community to have a voice. I, Frankfort, would be honored to continue serving you for the next 2 years to fight for what Frankfort deserves, and to fight for what you, the taxpayers, deserve: quality of life that benefits all. I will continue to lead with integrity, deliver what I campaign on: transparency, integrity, and trustworthy leadership you deserve. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we are moving next to Lisa.
Thank you, and thank you to FORR for this opportunity. My name is Lisa, and I am ready to represent you as one of Frankfort's next city commissioners. For years, I felt like our commissioners weren't really representing me and my interests, so why not be one? So that's why I'm here today. I felt like while campaigning has been different, I've still been able to talk to the community, and what I've heard is that many people in the community feel the same way as me. And people are wondering and questioning what our elected officials are doing with our tax dollars. And I brought this up last night. For example, Dolly Graham Park in South Frankfort. The South Frankfort neighborhood has been neglected for years, while other parks received upgrades. I think it was back in like 1999. They were promised a full renovation and really only received a playground. And so that community and many in the community have just been kept waiting. And I'm tired of waiting for a better Frankfort as well. So as your city commissioner, I'll listen to you, be a voice for you and those that need me the most by bringing your concerns to the commission and fighting for results. My Facebook page is Lisa Unger for Frankfort City Commission 2020, and my website is www.lisaforfrankfort.com. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up we have Anna Marie.
Hello, I'm Anna Marie Rosen. I want to thank Together Frankfort and Focus on Race Relations for hosting this forum. I studied fine art and mechanical engineering and then became an employee with 3M Company, where I worked and met my husband Richard of 40 years. 3M transferred us to Austin, Texas, where we lived for 25 years and decided to move here to Frankfort 10.5 years ago. We are excited about being part of the community here and find Kentucky and, of course, the capital a great place to live. During the last 4 years, I was a director on the Frankfort Plant Board. And it was here I was stunned to discover that decisions were made without critical analysis and real thought as to what the problems are. So from that experience, 3 of my goals as a commissioner developed. First, I'd like to help residents reduce their utility bills. We put aside money in the Frankfort Plant Board to do free home energy audits. And I'd like to see the commission give a stipend towards people actually following through on those recommendations. Number 2, the loss of the convention center was a terrible blow for the city of Frankfort, for our businesses, for the citizens. And how we develop that area hasn't been clear so far. I think it lacks transparency, and we need to work closely as a city commission with the developer to really get something that we want there. And third, I think that we can do a much better job with recycling. Right now, we cannot recycle most plastics, glass, or paper, major things that people are now putting into their garbage, which means it goes to the landfill. And I think this is a problem that we could be solving soon. Thank you for considering me on the ballot.
What number are you on the ballot?
I'm number 5.
Thank you so much. And we will move on to Eric.
Hi, Kristie. Thank you for organizing this forum, and just a thank you to your father, Ed, and Together Frankfort as well. You know, again, I am Eric Wissman. I'm your current commissioner, and I'm running for re-election to continue the work that I began only last year, even though it seems like a lifetime ago in some respects. You know, I ran to help my hometown, dedicated to creating measurable change to help us reach our potential. I think we all know and realize the great potential that's held in Frankfort and what we can achieve if we all work together. You know, I believe I'm one of the most engaged of anyone that's here running today or have been. And, you know, I chose to live in my hometown. I moved back after graduate school, intentionally trying to make a change here. And I've been very active in the community ever since. You know, I'm humbled and really terribly honored by the opportunity that I was given to lead my hometown in what has become unexpectedly one of the most challenging times in our lives. But I know we have a great future ahead of us, and like our governor says every day, if we all work together, we're going to come through this just fine in the end and be stronger because of it. But you know, we really can't look back. We can't look at the last 30 years as a precedent for our future. We can only look forward, and we can only look at the knowledge of the past to inform our future. So I ask all the citizens of Frankfort to consider those that they're going to elect to lead them, those who will bring ideas and policies forward, and not just those that are making noise, who can actually work together to create measurable change, as I have been doing on the commission. If you want to know more about me, please look at my website, www.ericwisman.com, or find me on Facebook at Eric E. Wisman, or you can email me at City Hall or give me a call. I always look forward to talking with all the people that call me, and it gives me real energy and push to my work. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys so much. And we are going to jump right, excuse me, into our first question, okay? According to the most recent handbook, the Board of Directors does not currently appear to have active plans that address racial inequities in Frankfort, Franklin County. Do you believe this is because currently there are no issues with racial inequities here, or is it simply not a priority at this time? First to answer that question tonight is going to be Kyle.
I believe that throughout all of the United States, racial inequities are at the forefront of issues that need to be addressed. Why they are not being addressed by the City Commission and our municipality is beyond me at this point. There should be someone spearheading those issues as on a daily basis. But what it comes down to is, do we have institutional racism that we are, and inequities that we need to address within local city government and within our city? And that goes to the highest levels all the way down to the lowest levels. And I think we need to look at the hiring practices. We need to look at the retention rates. We have a great City of Frankfort Police Department. We have a great opportunity to make sure that we have a very diverse community of organizations that are working together in this city. But what we do not have is a plan to make that happen. And it's unfortunate that the powers that be do not see it important to make sure that is happening. So what I would like to see day one is to have a plan for diversity training, a plan for diversity actions when it comes to hiring practices, and to make sure that the leaders themselves are tackling these big issues as they come along and are prepared to tackle them prior to an issue popping up. And I think with training and education, that will definitely benefit all involved.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, I'll repeat the question each time just so that you each have an opportunity to absorb it. Next up, I've got Diane. According to the most recent handbook, the Board of Directors does not currently appear to have active plans that address racial inequities in Frankfort, Franklin County. Do you believe this is because currently there are no issues with racial inequities here, or is it simply not a priority at this time?
I would hope that it's a delay in the process, and it's not because we don't think that it doesn't exist. Sadly, it took the most recent situation in our country for us all to be fully aware of so many things that we were blind to before. It surprises me that the current board is slow to react, I guess. You would think it would be part of the agenda, and you would think there would be a process to get things done quickly. Going forward, though, I would suggest that I always like to look at other examples that are working well and doing well, and to look to other cities that are doing things correctly and putting these things into place, and not reinventing the wheel. So that's what I would do going forward. I do like to hope that Frankfort's doing better than a lot of places than the rest of the country, but I think we all need to be aware going forward, and use those those new glasses that we have on with every decision that we make.
Okay, thank you so much. According to the most recent handbook, the Board of Directors does not currently appear to have active plans that address racial inequities in Frankfort, Franklin County. Do you believe this is because currently there are no issues with racial inequities here, or is it simply not a priority at this time?
I think we need to look at this in a couple different ways. Is it the handbook of the commissioners that does not address this, where I would certainly hope, and I don't know this, and I would be interested to find out if, that the city and the staff, do they have policies in place and to try to make sure that when we're doing hiring, that we make sure that it's an inclusive process and that we're reaching out and that we are having, that we're hiring folks that, that represent the makeup of the community. And if we're not, I mean, I think that obviously is something that needs to be dealt with immediately. The other thing is and if we are doing those things, if we are acting in an affirmative way to try to attract people of color to come, to work for the city of Frankfort, and it's not happening, then perhaps we really need to look a bit, on a broader scale and find out why it is that we're unable to attract, the people of color to work here or to live here and I think when you look at K-State, a good number of the faculty don't live here and they commute in from Lexington and Louisville. And I think that that's something that we need to address. And the only way we're going to be able to address this is not with city policy, the city commission needs to take a leadership role in instigating broad discussions throughout the community. I know we've talked about this before, and Kristie, your dad started this several years ago, and it's the whole purpose to focus on race relations. And the work, again, too, that Together Frankfort is doing is trying to bring people together and have conversations. And many of these conversations are going to be unpleasant and uncomfortable, but we have to have them. It's the only way we're going to get through this and move forward as a community. And I know it's difficult now because, I mean, this is an awkward environment. We're talking on, to my little camera on top of my computer screen, and we're all little faces on the screen, and it's hard to read people. It's hard to interact. It's hard to poke somebody, and I think that it's going to, we're going to have to be creative in the interim until we can, be able to sit down in the same room together and talk about these things. But I think that that's an important role for the commission, is to figure out why we still have these inequalities in the community and what it is that we need to do to move forward and how we bring people together to move forward. The other thing that's, that's fairly simple, but it's been a struggle, I know, for the city and, the nonprofits throughout town, is to make sure that we have active minority representation on our boards. And we need to do a better job of recruiting people. We need to do a better job of encouraging and promoting young people to get involved. So that's the way that I look at it, about how, as a commissioner, and how the commission needs to address racial inequalities in the community.
All right, thank you so much. Next, we have Katusha. The Board of Directors does not currently appear to have plans that address racial inequities in Frankfort, Franklin County. Do you believe this is because currently there are no issues with racial inequities here, or is it simply not a priority at this time?
Thank you for that question. I would have to disagree with both. I don't think at all that we don't think that it's not a priority or anything of that nature. What I do believe is that we are working hard toward different things at this time in inequities in Frankfort, one being working with Kentucky State University. But as commissioners, we have to understand that we have to do what we say we're going to do. And then being someone of color, it's going to be an uncomfortable time maybe sitting at that table or being the only African-American at that table to be able to speak, because then you only have one thought process. You have one person who is saying how they feel. I think if we continue working forward, I know that with the City Commission now, some of us are part of what's called Town Gown Association, which is huge, with partnering with Kentucky State University and pushing that equity, that diversity, and learning how to communicate and work with the university and the city. And I myself is on that committee and pushing that forward. And what I've been doing as City Commission is working really hard with Kentucky State University, as they are a historically Black college right here in our city. Right now I'm on a committee that is helping build a a healing center where anyone in the community or Kentucky State University can come together and talk about these issues, but it be a safe place for everyone. So if something needs to be corrected or someone wants more of an understanding, they're not judged in that safe place. It is a safe place. And so for me, that is huge. It's going to be huge for the community. It's going to be huge for Kentucky State. It's going to be huge for that city and town gown relationship. Furthermore, we just have to reach out and have those relationships. Breaking bread. I've attended Breaking Bread on several occasions. I mentor students to help with that equities in some of their disparities. When they come into our city, they don't have things or they don't have opportunities, and it's connecting them to the right people here in the community. Also, just traveling around to different historic events for Black History Month. I've also attended meetings at Western Hills High School to help in letting them see an African-American woman in a political position in an office. So it's about not just one particular age group, it's about touching all age groups. And I feel like that I am doing that in all that I can as City Commission. I have been working with Laura, Ms. Ross. So we are working on a few things as far as race is concerned, and I've spoken with Jerry, who is in town working on some things. So we have some things that we're working on that we're talking, so they'll hopefully be rolling out in the next little bit. But I think it is a priority. It is a priority in hiring, definitely for the police and the fire department, and for us to have a diverse staff. And it's just being open and having that opportunity. But also, like I think Harry.
We're at your time. I let you go a little bit over, but we're.
Oh no, that's okay. I didn't hear the beep. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Thank you so much, Patricia. Next, we have Lisa. Lisa, the same question. According to the most recent handbook, the Board of Directors does not currently appear to have active plans that address racial inequities in Frankfort, Franklin County. Do you believe this is because currently there are no issues with racial inequities here, or is it simply not a priority at this time?
You know, I think Frankfort's a great city. We're all lucky to be here, and we may not have as many, you know, in-your-face racial headlines or, you know, big news about racial issues, but it's here. It's a part of our system, just like many other cities in the U.S. So I can say I'm surprised that our commission hasn't brought it up recently, but we've also had a lot going on. You know, we lost our city manager during a pandemic when we needed him to keep everything running smoothly. So there has been a lot going on, so I understand. But I feel like it's important to stay focused on the community. And as your city commissioner, I would plan to address racial inequities in our city. And I did mention this last night. One thing I would want to focus on is some housing issues. We do see, you know, Frankfort has a history of displacing a lot of our Black community and our poor community, and that just like many other states in the US. So I would want to pass the IRLTA Uniform Residential Landlord Tenant Act, which just makes basically communication between the business owner, landlord, and the tenant fair to all parties. So that's something I would want to bring up, and basically just communication. We need to stay focused. We need to have trainings for, you know, the whole community to take a part in, just so it stays a part of conversation and we're all aware that there are issues. Frankfort is not perfect. There are still issues. So thank you.
Right, thank you so much. Next up, I have Anna Marie. According to the most recent handbook, the Board of Directors does not currently appear to have active plans that address race in Frankfort, Franklin County. Do you believe this is because currently there are no issues with racial inequities here, or is it simply not a priority at this time?
Okay, thank you for the question. I have thought about that and wonder if the entire handbook should be reviewed from the perspective of racial inequality. And to do this, I would select a panel made up of people from business and nonprofits who have some perspective in hiring. And start out with diversity training for them, and then look at the handbook and review it for where it could be improved. And I think that there are key areas that should be considered, such as the hiring method, the outreach to find candidates, and that they would develop a plan to work toward a wider racial scope. In talking with Chuck Adams, our police chief, about his hiring process, currently it is a year-long process that they request candidates to apply, and they go through the different types of tests, such as physical tests, and that they lose a lot of candidates because the process is so long. And he was interested in switching that into a quarter process, so a 3-month process, to evaluate candidates and not lose so many. So I think that a panel looking over the handbook and making recommendations would be very helpful and would bring community interest into the process.
Okay, so much. And we have Eric finishing us off with this question. According to the most recent handbook, the Board of Directors does not currently appear to have active plans that address racial inequities in Frankfort, Franklin County. Do you believe this is because currently there are no issues with racial inequities here, or is it simply not a priority at this time?
Yeah, thank you, Kristie. You know, part of the difficulty in working with any elected body as we are is just getting everyone to agree on doing anything. And difficulty with the current commission has been meeting of the minds and coming to some agreement in any forms. Obviously, it's been very publicly difficult for this current commission. That handbook was written by the previous commission, and even though I've requested multiple times to revisit our priorities and goals, the larger body has just not wanted to do that, unfortunately. But, you know, it's up to each commission, each elected official really to define their role. And, you know, in my elected position, I've been working, and really this has been an overarching theme. I have to state, I have to agree with Katricia in that regard, that it has been an overarching theme for all of our body, even though maybe it's not formally made it to our printed publications, if you will. But some of the initiatives I personally have been working on, you know, one that I believe is most critical to addressing this problem is through internships. You know, we have 3 high schools and a university here that we make very poor use of training those people and giving our next generation the opportunity to learn what job positions are out there. And we have an incredible amount of professionals that work for the city who aren't training the next person to take over their positions like we need to be. And I think to address these systemic issues in our community, we have got to work on uplifting our own, if you will, right? Instead of recruiting from other communities who are also recruiting for those same positions and that same diversity initiative. So we've just not been doing a good job of that. And I have set a goal for our commission, and we did take some steps before COVID hit to begin internship processes with all 3 high schools and Kentucky State University every year. Thankfully, we are working on some of those. Our police chief has been fantastic, our new police chief, in working with Kentucky State as a professor, as well as recruiting from Kentucky State and the University of Kentucky for police officers, social workers, otherwise. So we're making some measurable steps in those regards. And unfortunately, of course, some of our outdated publications just don't reflect that. But there are many you know, larger initiatives that we've got to take a better grasp of. You know, I mentioned last night that a couple of years ago, Frankfort was named one of the top 25 communities in the nation for African-American families to live and work. And I think we've got to work towards retaining some of that student body from Kentucky State University, as well as drawing in diverse businesses and getting people to locate and live in Frankfort. The state workers who travel outside of our town every day, we need to find ways and policies to begin pulling some of them in. And I have to take some distinction and pride that I've been working to do some of that through working with Kentucky State to develop some new community festivals and some focus on some of their initiatives.
And Eric, I let you go over as well. Sorry about that, just because I wanted, and you know, a matter of fairness. So thank you all so much for that response. We'll move on to our second question. And Harry, you are up first with question number 2. If you were an educator, how would you explain systemic racism to a group of young adults?
The past couple months have made us all, certainly I hope it's made us all think about things and to think about how we were raised and the biases we were raised with and recognize those things that perhaps we took for granted or didn't look at in a certain way. The bottom line is that, all of our societal institutions, were founded on white privilege. And recently, with the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, it reminded us that it was not only white privilege, it was white male privilege. So given that as the background for everything, in all of our, institutions, it has taken and is taking an incredible amount of time, much longer than we would have ever imagined, to dig our way out of this. Who would have ever guessed that, 50 years ago, that after the, all of the landmark legislation that came as a result of the civil rights movement, that we would be where we are today. I can think 30 some years ago, that I was privileged enough to be a staff person for Governor Doug Wilder, who was elected the first African-American governor in the country. And I can remember, that inauguration day and being so excited and so hopeful. And then 12 years ago when Barack Obama was inaugurated, the same sense of hope. And then here we are today, and it's like, what happened and why? It's really just kind of hard to fathom, and so but it points out how we've missed the point about how much racism is, a part of the fabric of this country. And it's, that's the threads that are woven through that need to be pulled. And we just need to, clearly work towards identifying those threads and pulling them. I can't, as a white, I can't imagine. I have, I raised 2 boys, and, when you have kids and they're teenagers, all you can do is worry about them doing something stupid. I didn't have to worry about them just getting into trouble or something awful happened to them because of the color of their skin. So it's, it's a whole rethinking of things for those, for folks now. And I think that the recent things that have happened, as unpleasant as they may be, I can only hope that it's moving us to finally address, the racism that is inherent in our system and has been for the past, since before the founding of our country.
Thank you very much. Okay, excuse me. Next is Anna Marie, same question. If you were an educator, how would you explain systemic racism to a group of young adults?
Yes, that is a very interesting question as to how you would explain that so that you get the point across. And I think I would start with the definition of what systemic racism is. And I would define that as making assumptions about a person, their preconceived idea about that person based on how they look and their age and the clothes they're wearing. And that preconceived idea is applied to making decisions for them. I think I would move on to role playing and have a couple of the students act out behaviors that are subtle and incorrect, and then have a discussion concerning that. I know that 3M was very active in diversity training back in the 1990s, and it was an interesting situation because you're employees and you want to, say the right thing, but also share information about yourself and your situation. And one of my cubicle near persons was actually from Taiwan, and he had 2 sons, and they felt when they were in school that the teachers all assumed that they would be great in math and science, and that irritated them enough that they started making errors on purpose to change those assumptions that they didn't personally accept as who they were. And I think this happens with other people who are considered automatically to be good in sports or not good in learning, and that we need to move beyond those assumptions. And it is pervasive in so many different areas. I think that by sharing stories and having the class talk about it would be the best way to get that point across.
Oh, always finish up, Anna Marie. Don't.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that talking about it, presenting stories, having discussions, showing examples would be the best way to help people understand rather than to point out where they might have made an error.
Okay, thank you so much. Next, we move to Eric. Eric, if you were an educator, how would you explain systemic racism to a group of young adults?
Yeah, thank you, Kristie. You know, I remember distinctly my freshman year of college at the University of Kentucky. One of my roommates at the time worked at the grocery store 1 block away from our house. She's a Black female, and she was stopped on the way to the grocery on her way to work by some police officers who just interrogated her for what she was doing. You know, this was an area that maybe wasn't as diverse as it could have been at the time. And that just stuck with me. I remember that being sort of one of the first times that it really smacked me in the face what biases were, what individual biases and systemic racism. And I was very angered at the time, and you know, went to her aid. And as soon as I got there, the police officer said my mistake and went on. But it reminds me that all of us that you know, that this country was founded by people that were concerned about self, as we all are. We all have blinders and individual biases that impact our daily lives. But I think we have to look at examples and to teach students and our youth about where we've come from and what strides we've made and where we still have work to go. You know, it's apt timing that we're celebrating the 19th Amendment to 100 years, which only 3 generations ago, you know, 5 of the people on the screen here would not be able to participate in this forum. I'm reminded, I talked about last night, a movie that I watched the other night in light of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's passing, taking on just, you know, in my mother's lifetime, all of those laws, 150 or more laws that specifically stated that women and people of color could not do X, Y, or Z, and in federal legislation where they were protected even then, but laws were written that were biased. So, you know, really just making children understand the implications of those. I mentioned again last night that our poverty rate in Frankfort, how that is a systemic problem because of racism and racial issues, that 1 in 3 children in Frankfort live in poverty. We've got to actively address those and attack those. And I think it's incumbent, and we've all learned upon all elected officials, all leaders, to actively address those inadequacies and to tackle the systemic problems that are inherent in our community as we've been defined for our whole history. So that's a beginning, but I think continuing talks like you all are hosting helps us a lot too.
Thank you so much, Eric. All right. Excuse me. Next, we move on to Diane. If you're an educator, how would you explain systemic racism to a group of young adults?
Well, you know, in a previous life, I was a scientist and I have a degree in psychology and business. But what I do now is I am an educator. I'm a stay-at-home homeschool mom. So I educate 2 young adults. So this question hits home. And I'll tell you what exactly I have done to try to explain the situation. I give an example. And in this case, I would use an example of me. I grew up in a lower income part of town next to hang on 1 second.
No problem. I'll pause for you.
Let me plug in really quick or you guys are gonna lose me. I grew up next to a trailer park, didn't have a lot of money. My parents worked all the time and they didn't keep that great of an eye on us kids. And we were all a bunch of juvenile delinquents. We were in trouble with the law a lot of the time, but, and ran from the law. Despite that, we still had access to excellent schools and we still managed to turn out okay. Now, had I been born with Black skin and a boy, my parents probably would have had to worry about letting me run the streets at night. Not that they would have, but they should have. And there's a good chance that I wouldn't have had a great experience with the police officers. That's just a fact. Probably wouldn't have had access to decent schools. I probably wouldn't have been encouraged to go to college or had access to the college, and my life would have ended up differently. The same example, or another example that I can use is very close friend of mine who's exactly the same age, who actually started out better off than I did as a kid. He's a Black man. He had two great parents, and they were growing up in a decent part of town. Yet his trajectory to adulthood, his story is so completely different than mine. His challenges that he experienced are heartbreaking and horrifying. So I tell these stories to my children, and I also, they're listening to me when I come back home, and I've had really deep, hard, difficult conversations about our systemic racism and our race relations, and I talk to them about it. I have open dialogue, and I encourage them to ask me questions. We talk back and forth. That's how we're going to move on. That's how we're going to become a better country. Have these hard, difficult situations, or these conversations with people that we agree with, people we disagree with. We need to learn from each other and move forward. Sorry
Thank
that
you
I
so much. No,
lost the battery there.
that is all right. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Lisa. If you were an educator, how would you explain systemic racism to a group of young adults?
I think I would start by talking about how systemic racism pops up in all systems in our society, you know, whether it's education, which I talked about a bit last night, policing, the wealth gap, housing insecurities, you know, it's across the board. So I think I'd want to be able to provide good examples, and then also talk about some times in my childhood, like Diane was talking about, where maybe if I had been a Black girl, maybe the situation would have ended differently. So I think that'd be good to talk about, being able to provide good examples, and then letting the students respond and give examples from their life. So just, you know, listening to each other, communicating, and I work at the Department of Education, and we've actually had really good monthly implicit bias trainings. And one thing I've learned from that is that Roger Cleveland from K-State provided really good examples about how teachers may not realize their implicit bias. And that can be across the board. So I think we just have to really be aware of those biases in any situation. And I guess that's really it. Okay. I know that I've played a part in not standing up when I should have, and I'm done doing that. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, next we've got Kyle. If you were an educator, how would you explain systemic racism to a group of young adults?
So systemic racism and institutional racism can be interchanged from the wording. It's important to understand the definition, though, whenever you're teaching a class, and whenever I taught college level classes, it's important to talk about what the definition is. When you talk about individual racism, that's easy to see. It's often identifiable. People can pick that out with any example because of its overt nature. You're able to see it or hear it or envision what is happening. Institutional racism or systemic racism is a little different. It's less perceptible because it's less overt and it's far more subtle. Institutional racism usually originates in the operation of an established and respected forces in the society. So for example, if you're dealing with something like criminal justice or employment or housing or healthcare or political power or education, any other issues that affect the daily life of an individual, those subtle issues of race that are not necessarily perceptible, but after 400 years of being a power play by those who have power and against those who do not have power, that is what are embedded in our society as a societal norm. They are accepted by a majority of people as just normal. And we have to understand that the American experience for one person is completely different than the American experience from somebody else. And that doesn't have to be two people from two different colors. It could be two people from two different religious backgrounds, anything of that nature. But when it comes to racial, systemic racism, we have to understand that coming from a privileged white perspective, I have to listen and understand where other people have come from and what they have had to live through to truly understand how systemic racism applies to their lives. And that's what I would do with students that I was teaching this particular issue to.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, last but definitely not least, for this question, number 2, Katricia, if you were an educator, how would you explain systemic racism to a group of young adults?
Well, first, I want to thank everyone for their answers. They were all heartfelt, as I know this can be a difficult topic. But the way that I would sort of explain it would just be an identifier of a certain group that should not deserve more or less than another group, right? That would be to my children. My youngest child. Going into young adults, I would, really let them know that where it rooted from. So systemic racism, it was a system that was set in place to divide people many, many, many years ago of color, for them not to have leadership positions, for them not to have wealth, for them not to own property. And we all, nowadays we say, oh, this is a broken system. Well, is it really a broken system, or is that just the system it's always been, right? So this system has been engraved in the way that we interact and stuff. And a lot of us, we just become conducive to it because that's just the way of life. And we don't want to challenge it because then we become someone that's, oh, well, they're challenging the button and things. And like Lisa said, you stand by, we watch things happen, and we become part of it. It just becomes life. If only we could see the world through the eyes of a child, right? Playing on a playground, and there's no color. But in reality, we understand that that's just not the way it is. We see that the slaves and our Black ancestors that many, many years ago worked really hard on these properties and things of that nature. And now a lot of Caucasian men and women have property and legacy to hand down to their children's. And then you have a lot of African American people who don't own those properties, but worked really hard on those properties. It's a system that holds us back. We look over the years, and then even with bourbon here in Kentucky, who would have known that some bourbon started with African Americans? But there's nothing in the history that says that, because it's like you have to give them a pat on the back, or you have to give them notice. And it's really hurtful. And as a Black woman who grew up in an all-white Caucasian family in foster care that was literally beat almost every day of her life, it's hard growing up in an all-white neighborhood. It was hard doing that, but I chose to be successful and I chose to do other things. And it bothers me in America that we focus more on the identifiers of the people than truly who they are. We care about race, we care about gender than just being American. I just challenge everyone, be a Frankfortonian, be American.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I want to briefly, I said this yesterday, I want to say it again today. I appreciate from the standpoint of a Black woman how difficult a concept this is for white people to grasp. Discrimination is something that we may have all experienced at one point or another. It's not necessarily, assigned to a certain race. Systemic racism it's assigned to us. It's not something that you may have been aware of, exposed to, something that you may not understand, but I urge everyone watching, this is one of the most important topics to make sure that you grasp, because in order to tackle racism, we have to tackle systemic racism on all levels. So thank you all for your bravery and even attempting to answer that question. Okay, moving on to our third final thing. We're starting with Eric for this question. Eric, do you feel that the city of Frankfort is actively addressing racism? Why or why not? You're muted. Let me pause you. You're muted there.
Thanks.
That's okay.
Yeah, thanks, Kristie. I believe we are. I believe our community leads as an example in our state, truly, much thanks to debates and forums like this and the work that FORR does. But it has been an overarching theme for the city commission itself as well. And, you know, I believe currently I am the city as one of the 5 leaders. My thought processes and, you know, frames of reference are what leads our city. And I feel great responsibility for that. And, you know, my time as commissioner right now, I think has been personally one of the greatest periods of development and self-reflection and education of my life, even though I've always been very critical of my own thought processes. You know, it's forced me to go beyond anything that I would have ever expected. And I think no one that hasn't served, particularly in the middle of a pandemic when lives are at stake, can quite understand or grasp that level of you know, pressure on your person to lead. But you know, I think we are taking some great steps. You know, I was proud that 4 out of the 5 commissioners walked in the Black Lives Matter rally, and I was very proud of our town. We were able to accomplish that in a way that was just powerful because of the crew that organized it. But you know, we've been demanding a lot of our staff, all of us, and I think we've been making some real strides in the right direction in recruitment processes, like I mentioned earlier with our police chief. Teaching at K-State, I think that was when we were interviewing police chiefs, that was one of the main things I wanted, someone that had education background that could work at the university and could educate. I think we all, as elected officials or potential community leaders, have to also be community educators, and it's posed upon us to try to find ways to bring these topics to light and enlighten those that maybe don't understand the concepts or misunderstand. But you know, I've been proud of some of our initiatives. I've mentioned some already, but simple things like just opening up government, creating one of the first actions I was demanding of was that all of our meetings were going to be telecast online, so that people who couldn't attend had to have access to see and engage with the commission in a new way, to be able to open up government and find new ways and new ventures to address inherent biases and systemic racism problems in our community that exist everywhere. I think Frankfort is ahead of the trend, and it goes back a long while because we were sort of a settlement area after the Civil War for African Americans to find safety in Kentucky. And so we were able to build things like, one of the preeminent African American high schools in the state historically here that have helped us a lot. But we have a lot of work to do. And I always think of Frankfort. I told a story last night about someone that came in.
Just letting you know, you've definitely hit your 2-minute mark.
Okay.
But I appreciate that.
Just to say that Frankfort's always a leader, right? And we have a potential, an opportunity, and a a demand really that we take the capital city as a leader statewide on all these 4 fronts, and that's always front of my mind. So thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Anna Marie, you are next.
Yes.
Do you feel that the city of Frankfort is actively addressing racism? Why or why not?
Okay. I do not feel that the city of Frankfort is taking an active role in the racism question. I think that there are places where they could make advancements, internship programs, which I know Eric has mentioned, but to include students from the Frankfort Independent system and also the county system and also Kentucky State within the different departments of the city would be helpful. I think it would also help in terms of the police department and the fire department having more minorities or people from Frankfort, as in right now, mostly they're people from outside of Frankfort. And my understanding is that that is at least partially true because it's other cities that have programs, intern programs to get students interested in those fields. I also note that The two parks with the poorest maintenance, poorest amenities are in the more likely to be minority areas, East Side Park and Dolly Graham Park. Other parks have nicer features, have been maintained in a better way, which to me aims at the people in the community who wanted better parks near them, voiced those needs and were heard. The other people either didn't have an opportunity to bring up those points or just didn't feel that they would make an impact enough to make it worth the effort to say our park needs to be upgraded. I think that it's a subtle situation that we have currently, so it's hard to focus on exactly what the city could do to make a difference. But I think that possibly in some of the literature, things that are published to show examples of people doing things from minority background. So I think that the city could do better in that area and make it a priority to focus on, which I don't think has been done.
Okay, thank you so much. Next up, we have Kyle. Do you feel that the city of Frankfort is actively addressing racism? Why or why not?
Personally, I don't believe the city is addressing racism. A couple of things I want to point out. Frankfort has a tremendous amount of diversity in it compared to counties and cities that surround us. We have a great historical background with our diversity, but our city commission can't deal with the nuances and the subtleties of racism and inequalities that we have in our town because they can't get out of their own way with dealing with big picture issues. They want to fire the city manager. They want to have their own agendas. They want to hire PR firms for things that make absolutely no difference in the lives of any Frankfortonian. And it is frustrating for us to say, yeah, we're patting ourselves on the back. We're doing a great job of dealing with institutional racism when we don't know who's captaining the boat because it changes every few months is a little disingenuous. I think it is hard to deal with things that are big picture issues that need large crafted plans that involve all of the city commissioners, but also all the city staff and a buy-in by a lot of people in the city, when right now the city of Frankfort doesn't have a lot of faith in city government at all. And I think it's frustrating at this point to say we're tackling these big issues when it's quite obvious we can't keep our own house clean. And that's where I land on this particular issue.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Harry. Harry, do you feel that the city of Frankfort is actively addressing racism? Why or why not?
I think if we're looking at it as the city as an institution, no, the city is not addressing, racism for any number of reasons, many that, Kyle articulated. I mean, we have failed to address, there's many issues that disproportionately affect people of color, and that's become more apparent, recently with the COVID pandemic and how that's affected folks. And so we're not dealing with things in that way from an institutional standpoint. But, I think as a community, and sometimes it takes the community to lead when our leaders aren't leading, that Kristie, your dad, starting several years ago and organizing Focus on Race Relations and the work that's been done over the past couple of years. And that's important, like I've said, those conversations are, they're slow in starting and it takes a while to get people together and to start talking. And it's unfortunate that we've been kind of held back a little bit by the pandemic, but I think that the seed's been planted, and as a community, we are going to move forward together. the work that came out of, the on the table discussions about how do we improve town-gown relations, and the fact that, that we sent a delegation to that national conference of other college towns across the country, and to think about us, and start talking about us as a college town instead of, talking about, oh, our relationship with K-State. Well, let's, back up. Let's talk about it. Why aren't we a college town? What are the things that we can address piece by piece that make us a college town? Like I said earlier, why don't more of the faculty members live here? I mean, that's part of being a college town. When you're a student or whether you're a member of the community and you run into faculty people and you have that engagement that's so important. The fact that we were able to have a huge, powerful, peaceful protest with the Black Lives Matter march was, that's incredible. That made me very proud of our community that we were able to do that in such a way in the middle of a pandemic, and everybody had a mask on, and and it was just made me feel it was a small step, but it was a big step for our community, and I think that's really important. So I think that it's separating those things, and I think and I hope that if I am elected, that I can get the other commissioners, that we can provide some leadership on this front, that as a city, as an institution, needs to move forward on dealing with race issues, and I think that we can certainly do that.
Okay, thank you so much. And we are moving to Patricia. Patricia, do you feel that the city of Frankfort is actively addressing racism? Why or why not?
Well, Kristie, I think it's a sort of a two-part, sort of like some others shared. I think for the city itself, the residents itself, I think they are truly a couple of steps ahead of our city government. I think, with the creation of FORR, Together, Frankfort, these other committees, I know Jess, hosting the talks at the library and things of that nature, like it's truly pushing our community, and our community is really the lead. And so for me, it seems like the city government is behind our residents. I helped assist with the Black Lives Matter march. It was a unity march. And in assisting that, I was going to throw mine on Friday. They were going to throw theirs on Monday. And then we came together and made it one big march on that particular Friday, which was Brianna's birthday. And I think with that, number one, that's just two entities coming together to make something successful. And there were so many people there. It was nothing but love and support. And I think that that's truly our community. So I think they're way far ahead. As far as our city government, there's a lot of work that we need to do. I mean, in our city government, there's times where some of our city officials use the word those people, and it's micro and macro aggressions that they really don't know that they use or they don't. I have to agree with Eric on one thing, that getting more internships, it's important. But then I'd have to, sort of disagree with Anne Marie in regards to some of the issues that we have with African Americans in our town and dealing with parks and things. They keep saying that that's a race issue. Dolly Graham is not a race issue for this city commission. We can't speak on what has happened before. What we can do is speak right now. And what I can tell you is you have a 5-0 vote for Dolly Graham, and we want that park to be started. Eric, I think that is one thing that Eric and everyone on that commission agrees on. We want that park started. It is not a racial issue at all. And I hate that when people try to make that a racial issue. I think that it needs more education than anything, and communication. I don't think that I think there is a racism issue lingering here and there. But I think it's more on education, Kristie, and communication. I think if we can get different people of different nationalities and race around a table, we can have communications, just like Together Frankfort when they did the On the Tables with Harry. That was so successful. Communication is key. I mean, Harry Carver, Kyle Thompson, Diane Strong, all three of them have called me within them campaigning to ask me hard questions on race. And I gave it to them straight. They know me. And that's people like that reach out, ask questions, and want to move forward. That's the people who are going to come in and get things done when they say they're going to do it.
Thank you. All right. And next up, we have Lisa. Lisa, do you feel that the city of Frankfort is actively addressing racism? Why or not?
I think that, like a few others have said, groups like FORR, Together Frankfort, even Walk Bike Frankfort that I'm a part of. I feel like we are all aware of what's going on. We try to address it when we can and when it needs to be addressed. But there's always room to do better, and definitely with our city government. I know the hot topic and a main way to address some of this with city government is reimagining what public safety looks like. Doesn't always mean losing police officers. It can mean figuring out how to, redistribute funds. Also making sure we are using funds appropriately. COVID's going to really make things harder financially for our community. So we need to be diligent with our funds. We need to budget appropriately so we have that money later if it's needed. We need to, I think, in order to address racism, we need to invest in our community, and that if we can invest in the police in our community, help provide housing, shelters. I know the city is working on more, shelter options currently, but, focusing on our social services. We currently do have a food desert, so that's something we need to address as well, and addressing racism early on in education and just in the community. But I think first we just really need to invest in our community to address it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And last up tonight, we have Diane. Diane, do you feel that the city of Frankfort is actively addressing racism? Why or why not?
Well, I mean, as far as the city, I can say that I'm very proud of the police department. I had a long conversation with Chief Adams, and I was thrilled to learn that he's actually proactive, not reactive. He was preparing the police department long before this summer by making sure that they would have body cams. And he's doing the training, and that makes, I love knowing that. He also is wanting to do more training, which I think will help with the race relations. I know that he wants to put a social worker on board, which would cost they would require a little more funds, which I think would be worth it. He also is interested in having some community officers where they're not on call, they can actually work in the community. These are great ideas. So that section of our city is working well. And, where the commission may be going through some hiccups right now, I'm really proud of our community. I know that there are small pockets all over the place where they're having discussions, they're having speakers, education programs. And of course we have FORR, but you've also got lots of church groups who are exchanging. I know one church where they're actually having conversations where they're mostly a white church, they're having conversations with a Black church. These are so important, these conversations. And that's what makes me so proud of Frankfort. I think Kiwanis has also had some speakers come in, and it's all of these conversations. You can't just have a whole room of people talking to each other. These small, intimate conversations. And then as a city, we can take those conversations, we can listen to FORR, we can listen to what they've learned, and then apply those to the city. Because it's like, it's information that has been dissected and taken apart, and we can learn from our community. Anyway, that's my take on that.
Well, thank you very much. Actually, I think this has been great. Excuse me, very informative, and I want to thank you again for your participation. What we're going to do now is give all of you 1 minute to make sure that the community knows what number you are on the ballot, how to find you online, and read more about your wonderful ideas for how to help our city. We will start with the last question first this time. Eric, you want to start us off?
Sure. Thank you, Kristie. I wanted to thank you again for putting together this forum. It's unfortunate that our answers last night didn't get to come forward. I thought we had some really wonderful conversations, a little more in depth than even tonight. So that's unfortunate, but part of it. So, it's been a very difficult year for all of us, but I just want the community to know that your life and safety of our town is always my first and foremost priority. When we come out of this pandemic, I'm really excited for our future. We're going to come out the other side of this okay, and I think Frankfort is ripe to just take off by leaps and bounds. With the right leadership and myself there, I know we have some bright days ahead of us. I grew up fairly poor in Frankfort. I grew up in a trailer in Bald Knob, and Frankfort has provided me an opportunity to come full circle from a place where we had insecurities of our own to the point that I could lead my hometown. That's really powerful for me and something that's never lost on me. And I always think about making sure that I am always that person that I needed as a child to lead our community. And that is always my leading charge in life. So I hope everyone will take into consideration who's running and make informed decisions on picking our next leadership group. It's an important time, and you can always find me online and on Facebook and all the usual places. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next up, Anna Marie.
Yes. So I'm very happy to be a candidate for City Commission. And I want to mention my website, which is annamarierosen.com, and my Facebook page, which is Anna Marie Rosen 2020. I bring important strengths that will help move the city forward, and we have many opportunities coming up in the near future. My background in working on technical problems at 3M Company for 25 years with a wide range of international people and local people. I also have experience working on the plant board and solving and working with complex issues, and I enjoy tackling problems. I believe that public institutions such as the city should put people from all backgrounds first, be transparent, and use extreme care in managing public money. Frankfort has many opportunities, especially with rebuilding the area where we lost the convention center. If elected, I would like to advance our city by working as a group with the commission and the mayor to find the best long-term solutions for Frankfort. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Next, Kyle.
First of all, I want to thank FORR and you, Kristie, for allowing me the opportunity to be a part of this forum tonight. It is crucially important that we have tough discussions about things that make us uncomfortable. Only through that work will we be able to tackle huge world-changing issues like race relations in America, but also tackle the issues that are facing Frankfort on a daily basis. I don't have all the answers. I will readily admit I don't have all the answers, but I have a plan to make Frankfort better starting on day one in office. My goal is to make my hometown a place I am proud to show off as the crowning jewel that the capital city should be in our Commonwealth. To learn more about my platform, beliefs, and just a little more about me and my little family, please go to my website at votekylethompson.com. There you can request a sign or volunteer to help out the campaign. You can also find us on Facebook, where we update our profile page almost daily. I'm very thankful for the opportunity to run for public office in my beloved hometown. I humbly ask for your vote on or before Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020, as one of your next city commissioners. I'm number 8 on the ballot. We're at the top of the list with ideas and desires to make real change happen in Frankfort. Thank you for your time, and hopefully I'll see you all around town.
Thank you. All right, next, Harry, you're up.
All right. I'm running because I recognize that we need to grow Frankfort economically. And people talk about a rising tide lifts all ships, and I think that's, we can talk about that, and that's important. But many of our boats, really are leaking right now, and we need some additional help as we grow our community economically. Frankfort needs to be an inclusive community. We need to continue these conversations that we've started. We need to keep people moving forward together to make this a better place for all of us. I feel that my experience working with community organizations and nonprofits and having worked with local governments across the state, makes me qualified to serve on the commission to help move us forward and act in a way that's transparent and fiscally responsible. So I ask for your vote. If folks want to know a little bit more about me, I'm on Facebook, and also you can do, just Google me. I'm all over the place. Thank you, and I appreciate your support.
Thank you so much. All right, Katricia, you're up.
Hey, great. Well, first and foremost, I know at the very, very beginning, and one of the comments at the very beginning was noisemakers, right? And I will agree, I am one of those noisemakers. But let's keep in mind that when we have a car accident, you scream. When you see a baby in danger, you scream. So you make noise where the attention needs to be. So yes, I'm making noise to bring attention to our community where there's problems right now on our city commission. So you know what, a lot of things are going on our city commission right now that are happening in secretive and quiet times, and it's time to make some noise to be heard. So what I can say again is just thank you, Frankfort, for allowing me to serve you. I ask you for your vote for re-election as you mail in your ballot, visit the headquarters in October, or push the button on November 3rd. Please visit my website at www.katriciaforfrankfort.com for more information on my platform and how to join me on the road to November 3rd. Also, I can be reached at 502-219-7449 if you have any questions or concerns or ideas for our city. I'm here to listen, to move things forward, and to give Frankfort the deliverables that it deserves and has been waiting on. So vote number 4, Katricia, on the ballot, because she is the candidate for Frankfort.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, Lisa, you're next.
Hey, thank you. So I think Frankfort has a really big chance this election to make a positive change in our city leadership. And I want to be a part of that. And I want to help bring opportunity and better quality of life to our community and citizens. I'm running to truly represent the people of Frankfort. And as the president of the Frankfort Striders and Walk Bike Frankfort, my involvement with that, I've really gotten to know a lot of my community members. We've focused on health and wellness, accessibility and safety for our community. So I've gotten to understand priorities and needs for many of the people in our community of Frankfort. So I promise transparency, compassion, practicality in my decision making. I want to be a city commissioner that you can be proud of. Vote Lisa Unger, number 6 on the ballot. I want to be a trustworthy voice for you and your family. I do have a Facebook page, Lisa Unger for Frankfort City Commission, and website, Lisa for Frankfort. And I want to end this the same way I did last night. I believe Black Lives Matter. I'll continue to say her name until Breonna Taylor's family receives justice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, and last tonight, we've got Diane.
All right, well, I want to thank you so much for having this forum again. I wish it could have happened the first time, but that's okay. We make mistakes and we figure things out and we move on. So it's been a great night. My name is Diane Strong. My website is dianestrong.com. My email is dianestrong@ymail.com. The letter Y, just like the G. I'm number 7 on the ballot. I'm running a green campaign. I believe that at the end of this campaign, whether I win or lose, I don't want to fill the landfill with a bunch of signs. So I am depending on word of mouth. And if you like my ideas or me, and I encourage you to spread the word to your friends, because I am really depending on just that. I'm also not spending a lot of money on my campaign because I believe that this position should be available to everybody, not just people with lots of money or people that have access to a lot of money. So I ask for your vote. Number 7 on the ballot, Diane Strong, likable. Thank you.
Well, guys, I want to thank you again. I do want to point out, Kelly May was with us yesterday, did amazing, could not make it tonight through no fault of his own. So we apologize for that, but I am going to send him the same questions, give him the opportunity to post that so that his, everyone can read about that, his supporters can look and see that. And if you all would like, I don't mind to send the questions to you as well so that you can get them on your webpage. On behalf of FORR, Focus on Race Relations Frankfort and Together Frankfort, I want to say thank you so much. We encourage open and honest dialogue, conversation about race, and that is exactly what we've just done tonight. We may not always agree, we may not always get along, but I love the fact that we can just come together as adults and discuss the issues that are most important to our community. So I thank all of you so very much for your time again. And I want to say have a great night and good luck to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristie.
Bye.